What if the way you've been telling your life story reveals the secret to what is holding you back? Stories play an integral part in how we see not only ourselves, but the whole world. Stories are more than just an important part of communication. They also reveal hidden aspects of our inner talk, which can either support us or end up holding us back from the very things we want most in life, without us even realizing it. Join author, mindset coach, and award-winning singer-songwriter Carrie Rowan on her show, Look for the Good, every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. when she shares nuggets of wisdom from her internationally best-selling book, Tell a New Story, 5 Simple Steps to Release Your Negative Stories and Bring Joy to Your Life. Carrie's powerful stories and compelling guests will empower you to change how you look at your own life while giving you some powerful tools and tips you can use every day to help you feel better and move yourself closer to the life you've been longing to live.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to Look for the Good. I'm your host, Carrie Rowan, mindset strategist and coach, and I love sharing nuggets of wisdom about the stories we tell each other, and more importantly, the stories we tell ourselves. So you can join me and my special guests every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. when we share our personal stories of strength and triumph every week on Dream Vision 7 Radio. You can listen online on your mobile device, in your car, or ask Alexa to play Dream Vision 7 Radio. And again, tune in every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. to get real stories and real tips on how to turn your story and your life around and evolve with us as we unite humankind in universal love. And hello, everybody, and welcome back. I'm so excited. We have Amy waiting in the wings. Hi, Amy.
Hello, Carrie. So excited to be here with you.
I am excited to have you on here, and this is just going to be fabulous. We have so much to talk about. We're going to try to contain ourselves.
We are? No.
We're going to try to contain ourselves to an hour. I was going to say, we don't need to contain ourselves. We'll contain ourselves just to an hour because we have so much to talk about. And I love everything that Amy does. I love how we met. We actually met at the hairdresser. Don't you love that story?
I love that. Phenomenal.
So maybe we'll share a little bit about that funny story. So yeah, this is just going to be fabulous. We have so much to talk about. You guys are not going to want to miss a morsel of what Amy has to share with us. Before we get started, just a word from our sponsor. Are you a busy leader who has thought about working with interns to grow your organization, but figured it'd be too time consuming? Vision's internship has got your back. Their internship insider membership can help you set up and run a customized, well-oiled internship program with solid ROI and minimal stress. For more info, visit internshipinsider.info. That's internshipinsider.info today. And thank you, Amy. Super excited to talk about your company, Internships Insider Membership Program, which is amazing. And let's get started. I want to talk a little bit about you. I know it always makes everybody feel uncomfortable, but it's really a great place to start. And Amy Mosher Berry is passionate social entrepreneur and community development professional. She's got over 20 plus years of project experience, including 10 years running her own consulting firm, 5 years teaching college, and now as the CEO and founder of Vision's Internships. Love all that. She understands firsthand what today's organizational leaders and young professionals need to succeed in our ever-changing world and enjoys adding value wherever she can. Amy, again, super excited to have you on. And tell me, what would you add to that? What is something unique that most people don't know about you that you wanted to share with the group today?
Well, that could be an entire show, Carrie. Something. Oh, my goodness. Well, some of the people that knew me from back in the day, I did grow up in central Massachusetts, so born and raised in the boroughs. And long story short, I'm sure we'll get to some of the life story here today, but I am back in the boroughs. And when I was 15 years old, my dad said, "We're moving to East Texas." And I was like, "Oh my." And he said, "Don't worry, kids, smiling faces and open spaces. You're gonna love it." And, I was Juliet in Romeo and Juliet, in the high school play. I was just rocking my life. I thought, I was on a big state winning championship team in high school, and I was flying high. And all of a sudden I remember it was April 7th. and I'll spare the year because it feels a long time ago. But I ended up in East Texas, and I actually moved back about 4.5 months later and was able to sort of restart my life back here. And that really taught me so much, really opened my eyes, a lot that I had taken for granted. People actually hadn't even heard of Massachusetts. They didn't know,
That's how they say it.
I was a freshman in high school, and I was just literally in shock for many months. And I was fortunate to be able to come back, and I had some supportive friends, and my family eventually did come back. So that shows you a little bit of the entrepreneurial spirit from a young age. But that's a little hint, and
I
I'm sure
love that.
go in many directions.
But I
People
love
don't know
that.
that.
I mean, that is, you were so young. You were just a freshman. And to be able to make that bold,
was.
right? And to be able to tune in and be so self-aware that you knew this was not going to work out for you. And then to go find a solution for yourself tells
Yes.
us a lot about you.
Carrie, it's a little fuzzy, both being moms and some of the listeners being parents. It's like, I look back and I'm like, it's really foggy how that all went down when I was 15. And my mom is in particular, her children are her world. I'm the middle child of 3. And I need to talk to her. I need to have tea one of these days. I'm like, Mom, how did that really go? Like, did you think I was just coming back? She's like, well, no, we thought you were coming back, but you were up there for, a sports event with friends. And then I was like, well, Mom, it's not going to work for me to go back down there. And she's like, well, it's really not going to work for us to be down here much longer anyway. So yeah, I guess you can stay and we'll be back up soon, but I don't really remember. It's very fuzzy, which I actually love that part of the story. But I remember a lot of my high school friends were like, didn't we have a goodbye party for you? And because I went to a regional high school, as you're familiar, I was
Yes.
back and I was like, well, I'm staying with a friend on her trundle bed most of the days, but, arguably homeless for a stint, but had the people to help, takes a village.
I love that. It
We're
does.
still standing to talk about it.
I
Definitely
love
an
that.
adventure.
Yeah, totally takes a village. And that is such a cool, because I really feel like not a lot of people could do that, right? And that talks to your entrepreneurial spirit. And you said you grew up with that spirit. Your family sort of really embraced that for you at a young age. And how do you define that? I love the idea of an entrepreneurial spirit. Define that in your definition of what that means to you.
Entrepreneurial spirit for me means really allowing myself to be with myself. And literally, I am going right after this podcast, I'm going to Maine to be with myself. I have an annual pilgrimage myself that I carve out time. And, being a mom of a 6-year-old, that's not always the easiest thing logistically. So, what entrepreneurial spirit means to me is to make sure that I give myself the time and the space and the grace to go inward and actually, really have my own little life assessment, not to look to see what's wrong or bad, because, I think a lot of times I can default to, oh my gosh, it's already XYZ in the calendar. And I thought I would have done ABC. Oh, look at me, I'm behind, that feeling of being behind. And it's like, the entrepreneurial spirit reminds me that it's like, truly, I am exactly where I am meant to be, and to allow myself to learn a little something from every step of my journey. And there's definitely been a lot of steps, a lot of missteps. But if I look back, it's my entrepreneurial spirit allows me to sort of see each event, and even something especially that is unexpected or unplanned, as an opportunity to learn and grow, as opposed to oh, I failed. And one of the things I love to share with young people is, truly, and I know we've heard this, people have probably heard the expression that, failure is part of the success equation. But just because we fail as a verb does not equate, we're not actually a failure as a noun. We fail as part of our own success equation. But to look at what we learn from the so-called failures, it's really about a new lesson to be learned. And I think that entrepreneurial spirit really carries through, certainly from my childhood. I had, especially on my dad in particular and his family, and then my mom's mom was extremely entrepreneurial. And I'll share something. Just, I remember I worked for the city of Worcester after the 2008 meltdown for almost 6 years, which is pretty amazing for an entrepreneur in the government cube.
Sure is.
They were like, oh, you're going to do something new and innovative. And I was like, absolutely. And they're like, well, we don't really do that here. And I'm like, well, new times call for new initiatives and new approaches, right? So I had come in to run something called the STEM Power program it was a Department of Labor funded program. We had done very well with my team, and I shout out, guys, you know who you are. If my Central Mass folks, I mean, we really empowered and helped thousands of people after the 2008 meltdown. So it was 2009
Awesome.
through about 2012. And I had a little bit of, if you will, sort of political capital, if you will, in my role. And I said, you know what, let's do an entrepreneurship program, because I'm gonna move on because I'm an entrepreneur. But why don't we actually, allow this entrepreneurial mindset to be infused in how we coach and empower, especially long-term unemployed people, especially 40s, 50s, 60s. They thought they were getting ready for retirement, and all of a sudden their lives are upside down and they needed to figure out a new way. So here I am, and I made the case. I said, we really need somebody who's in innovation and entrepreneurship. So let's start this entrepreneurship program. So one of the stories that I would tell, and I want to tell it because it's a real honor to my grandmother. I actually just went to see her gravesite last weekend, which is another little pilgrimage I do. Not that it's too far from me here in Massachusetts, but and I would always tell the story of my grandmother who, she was about 16 at the time, and her family was going through the Great Depression. And no one could find work. And she had 3 brothers and 2 sisters, and she was in the middle somewhere. And the father was out of work. The mom had stayed home with the children. In fact, I think there was 5 total, so I may have miscounted the sibs. But she basically said, I'm going to find work. Right. And okay. And I always remember this story. So she said, Amy, I just said, I just told my family that day I'm going to find work. So she basically started door knocking. She was mainly in Dorchester and that area in Boston. And she just was door knocking to, she wasn't sure if were they apartments, were they offices, she was just trying to find anybody that was looking to hire someone. And so she just kept knocking and talking to people, and doors were slamming in her face. And one guy finally said, can you type? And she said, yes. And he said, have you used a typewriter? And she said, yes. And she didn't know what a typewriter was.
I love it.
So
just say yes.
He said, now I'm not promoting lying, but it was honestly a matter of survival. Somebody had to find a job. God bless my Grammy. So she said, yes. In other words, she believed she could do the thing.
She could figure it out.
What the thing was, she would figure
Absolutely.
it out. Of course. So she decided, so he said, okay, well, come on in and I'm going to give you a test. And if you pass the test, you can come in on Monday. So he said, here's the piece of paper. I happen to have a piece. So it was old school, piece of paper. Here it is. And I need you to type exactly what I've typed across all the way down the paper. And if it's consistent, I will hire you. She said, okay. Now, meanwhile, so she sits down at this typewriter she had never seen or touched before. There's a big dog barking. She's petrified of dogs.
Oh, gosh.
And she screwed up across the whole way. The whole thing was messed up. She said, he said, if it was consistent, I would get the job. So she pecked, she's very smart. And she looked at the exact letters she had done all the way across. And she did the exact same mistakes all the way down the page. He looked at it very quickly, said, beautiful, it's consistent. Please come in on Monday.
Wow.
And so she literally fed her family for a matter of months before a brother. And I think the dad got back to work after that. But that's a story I used to tell my job seekers who were in many cases long-term unemployed and considering entrepreneurship as a viable path for them at that stage of the game. And it's very, very uplifting. So that kind of spirit. And of course, my dad has in his family have many examples of entrepreneurship, but I just want to give that story of my Grammy. Her name was Sidel. She actually renamed herself. She was born Sadie and she called herself Sidel, and you can call me Sid. And she was an early professional way back in the day.
She was totally ahead of her time. Wow. Women's empowerment, getting out. And she didn't, like you said, it was her belief. She believed, I don't have to know what a typewriter is to know that I can believe in myself to figure it out.
Yeah, I can type. She was born in 1917.
That's amazing. That's amazing. She was so ahead of her time. I love that you carry on that spirit.
And her parents didn't speak English. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That is unbelievable, because that's what it takes. It takes the belief in yourself. Like you said, in yourself, that you can figure it out. Everything's figure outable, right? And so that's what you have to believe as an entrepreneur, because you are doing it all. We're every day. It might not be a typewriter, but it could be a phone or social media or something that you had to figure out. Or all of a sudden now you've got to figure out how to edit a video, or all these things are constantly coming up as an entrepreneur, because we do it all, right?
Absolutely. I just had that. I don't know I think we're connected, but anyways, on LinkedIn, I was determined to do LinkedIn Live. And I'm like, I had gotten some help and I thought I knew what I was doing. I had put it out to a lot of people on my LinkedIn. I have well over 4,000 people. I invited about 500 people, people that I just wanted to kind of give an update.
Sure.
I had 19 people RSVP. I had all these people live, and I could not see or hear, and nobody could see or hear me. It was literally a black screen. That was
Oh no.
this past Tuesday. And then I said, oh my gosh, like, I feel like, you feel like a failure. You're like the professional helping people in these areas. And it was a new tool I hadn't used to be able to stream live on LinkedIn. Long story short, I figured it out something that day. I went live on my personal Facebook, which I wouldn't normally recommend for like an update on my business. But then I took that link and I basically posted it on LinkedIn and tagged the people that had RSVP'd and thanked them with a special thank you. So sorry, I'm learning. And then on Thursday, a couple days later, I was able to get additional help and we figured it out, and I'm still learning,
That's
but
amazing. I love that you did that. Yeah, you made a good connection with people because you just showed that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to say, hey, I didn't know how to do that LinkedIn Live, but you came up with a solution. And that is the definition of an entrepreneur. Run into a problem, admit you might not know how to do it, but come up with an alternate solution, right? That's what it's all about. Because you never know when that alternate solution is going to be the next big thing, whatever that might be, right?
And I just wrote, I'm like, I'm declaring myself unstoppable. That was not the way I planned, but really, it really is like, I mean, when does life actually go the way we plan?
It doesn't.
I'll wait. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, when does that happen? It's almost an anomaly if it does go as planned, so it's like, you expect the unexpected. And then the real key is like, who am I going to be in the gap? It's this inevitable gap between the way you think it's going to go, the way you might want your life to go.
Yep.
You might even think you might even write it down. You might even tell somebody, it might be this thing you're going for. A lot of people have big plans in their heads, and that's great too. But when life doesn't go the way we plan, the big question is like, for me, it's not so much what am I going to do next to fix or change? It's like, okay, let's acknowledge the breakdown, because we know that breakthroughs come following the breakdown. I believe that.
I do too.
I say, okay, well, who am I going to be is way more important than what am I going to do next when life doesn't go the way that I want. It's like, who am I going to choose to be? That I am even conscious that I have a choice as to how to be as a human being. And this is something I'm super passionate about, is we are in fact human beings before we are human doings, sayings, havings. We are in fact human beings. So like, who are we going to be? Recognize the choice. We can choose who and how to be, especially when life does not go the way we plan. It's so powerful. Like, that's true essence of human and leadership.
I love that.
Acknowledging that gap and giving ourselves a little grace. As I started out earlier, defining entrepreneurial mindset, it's like, without giving ourselves grace, it's so difficult to move forward or give others grace.
It's so true.
Just in our own way, which I've certainly been there.
True. We all have, but it's that self-compassion. But I love what you said about choice, because I know that you have been listening to my book. So you know that I'm huge on talking about choice and deciding, because the only thing that we do have control over, as you just showed as an example, we didn't have control over, is what happens in here. Right? What goes on with our mindset? And I love that you I talk about this all the time, asking better questions, and you set yourself up with a good question. Who am I going to be? Okay, we know what happened, but who am I going to be? And that's really setting the intention for your whole life. Who do you want to be? Right? It's like intention setting. It's one of my steps in my 5 steps.
Yes. I love your book. I love your steps, you guys. I know whoever's listening to this, here's Carrie, but it's blowing me away. I mean, I got it right after I met you at the hair salon, and my life has been so wild until this week. I was like, okay, I knew I scheduled it for this week, but I'm really enjoying your book. I believe I'm at chapter 10 at this point.
Wow. Thank you so much. I love that. The 5 steps are key, because we're talking about all those things in this conversation, and setting an intention of who you want to be. It's like it steers the ship, right? Internship is the name of your company. I love how you always use those analogies. So we're going to continue with the analogy of the ship, because it does. You need intentions to steer your ship, because if you don't, you're getting thrown around by the waves, right? You're going to fall for whatever comes your way. You're not going to remember where you're going. You're going to veer off your path. It's like your internal GPS, right? And when you set that up right, you know where you are, you know where you're going, you know who you want to be, you know how to get yourself out of those states, because we all fall into them at sometimes, those lower vibe states.
Exactly.
And when you know how to do that stuff, everything else becomes easier, because you are more, in tune with, and you're more in alignment alignment with who you want to be and who you really are.
Exactly.
And I love that. And you touched on that too with this little, this being vacation that you're taking, this
I
this
know.
solo trip.
Well, in this format, it's only been occurring. So this is, I should say, it's been 6 blessed years, and I don't know if we want to go here, but I think it's probably worth sharing. So in 2018, I was seeing I guess they call them a therapist. I was seeing somebody to help with my own sort of personal situation. I was, well, I was about, let's see, I was 3+ years married at the point, and I did have a 1-year-old at the time, and my marriage and my life was totally falling apart. And
Wow.
I've just learned so much, and this is going to be tied to some of the other comments we probably covered today, I'm guessing. But one of the things that my therapist had said, she said, Amy, we've been talking for about a year, I can feel you have so much in you, you're really, you're not where you want to be. This marriage, like many things in life, isn't at all what you thought it was. And I don't really know what else to say to you, but what do you need for yourself right now, Amy? And I remember it was October. It was exactly 6 years ago. And she said, I'm so sorry. I really, the grandmother type, very sweet, caring, lovely therapist who really didn't know what to say to me next. She just said, I don't really know what to say, but what do you need for yourself right now? And she just paused. And I said, well, Elaine, I'm going to Maine. And of course it rhymed. So it was really fun. And I was just like, oh my gosh, that was my new mantra. I'm like, I'm going to Maine. Because when I was 15 to 25 years old, I would go to Wells Beach, Maine every summer with my 2 best friends. And when they started having children way younger than I did, so they were in their mid-20s, having gotten married and starting a family, of course, I was the, eternal, like, I'm going to go across the world. I'm going to adventure. I'm going to start a business. Like I'm like, you guys, but okay, fine. If you're settling down, that's okay. But just bring your kids. Like, we need to keep going to Maine. And they're like, Amy, you have no idea. And of course, I had no clue until I had my own child, like 13, 14 years later. I realized that wouldn't have worked out. But so I listened to my like inner compass for sure when I was in such personal turmoil. And I declared out loud to my therapist, Elaine, that I'm going to Maine. And I've been going to Maine every now fortunately named Indigenous Peoples Day holiday long weekend. I've been going every weekend, same weekend. I literally book it before I leave the hotel.
I love that.
And it's
Wow,
right on
that's
the ocean.
smart.
It's
That
right on.
is
So
smart.
I create, it's a great, and it's a challenge because, nothing's cheap. You never quite know, like, how, you're making these declarations and commitments without knowing exactly what's going to happen a year from now. And especially having a little one and all the different, plates that I'm juggling, like so many people. And it's like, you know what, no matter what is happening, I'm going to Maine.
I love that.
And so it's been a great practice. And it's nothing's, it's just predictably unpredictable. And because it's like what my inner guide and my heart is saying is what I need for me to be my best self. And I used to think, and not so long ago, I used to think doing something for myself, going away and investing in me, if you will. I used to think years ago that like, oh, is that like selfish? Like, is that, there's so many other pressing needs, and I realized I'm like, you know what? And this is a number of years ago, thank goodness I kind of came up with this, while I can be super conscious of somebody who may, I remember when I lived in Worcester during grad school, I myself was struggling big time financially. And I'm like, is it okay? Like, how can I, back in the day, $10, go to the movies when I know people in my own neighborhood are starving, like, or they need something more pressing, or, and it's like, actually, when we give to ourselves in a thoughtful and intentional way, to use your concept of intentionality, we can really create a life that not only, it's not about just serving ourselves, but I can be so much better set up to fulfill my own potential, which is going to be such a greater contribution to the world. So I've really, and I've tested it out. When I don't do things for myself that I need to be my best self, nobody gets my best self.
It's so true.
Myself or my child, my family,
Right.
the world,
Right.
you name
It's
it.
so true.
It's really powerful.
You need that. And it's interesting what you said, because I think a lot of women feel that way, that somehow self-care is selfish. But self-care, like you just said, it's the whole oxygen mask theory, right? You got to put the oxygen mask on yourself before you save anybody else. So when we're in a higher vibe, we're in that better place because we're giving ourselves what we need, which is why I love Elaine's question. Then we can be of service to more people, right? And I love that. And I know everybody's hanging on your every word, but they're going to have to hang for a couple minutes as we break real quick right here. Don't go anywhere. Come right back. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Look for the Good. I'm here with Amy Mosher Berry, and we are having the most incredible conversation. She was telling us this incredible heart-centered story about how, everything fell apart at once, the job and the marriage and all these things. And what were you saying to yourself? How did you, because we all know we've all been there. We've been in those moments where we were having things happen that we wish didn't happen, what we were talking about before. What did you say to yourself? How did you turn that around? And I know that you pulled on that entrepreneurial spirit of yours that is just so deeply ingrained through your generations of your family. How did you turn that around? What were you saying to yourself?
Oh, that's a great question. So I'll back up just so people can understand the context a little bit more. So basically, my mom says I kissed a lot of frogs. So I waited a long time to meet my, then husband. And I was very proud of myself. I feel like I had done the work. I had ultimately met him online, and we dated for about 19 months, including our engagement. And we got married in 2015, and we went on a honeymoon, and literally on the honeymoon, things shifted. Things felt distant. And I said, I was making jokes. I happen to speak Spanish fluently. He doesn't speak a word of Spanish. So like we were in a Spanish speaking place for our honeymoon. So, I was like, well, it's just that he's uncomfortable, or it's just that this, or it's, we're exhausted from all the things. Anyways, we get back 10 days after we get back from the honeymoon. He has a terrible appendicitis. We're very lucky he didn't become septic. It was very bad. I probably should have gotten him to the hospital sooner, and we're lucky he's with us. Like, it was very intense. It was a longer recovery. So I just said, you know what, things are kind of distant and different, but you know what, that was really traumatic, and he's healing. And, he also had an additional commute that he didn't have before he got married. So I was just trying to like make sense of it all. And I'm very proud of how we've never once like yelled or raised, there's nothing that our daughter has seen that would make her feel there's something wrong here. And we all know that, just being human, we perceive things to be wrong, and then we make it mean something, and we suffer for it. So I just feel like it could have gone a lot worse. And the following year, we were, I thought, on a little bit of a better track. And I was, talking to him, I really have this idea for an internship services business. I was teaching at the college level, and I was just really concerned that so many of my young people, and I did have the privilege to teach over 650 college students over 5 years at 2 colleges, one larger public and a smaller private school. And, great institutions, wonderful young people. But I was just like, you know what, this trend of young people systematically graduating without real world experience has got to end. Like, I cannot continue to sort of indirectly perpetuate this. I, as a social entrepreneur, I'm going to, figure out this small little project, right, Carrie? It's just a little thing. So I started
solving the
company,
world project.
And, it was, we were doing a lot of virtual internship solutions. So that was the original name of the company, Virtual Internship Solutions. It was actually too long for me to even remember. I said, let me pare this down. And it became Vision and Visions, because people, individuals and organizations, we want, a positive vision for our lives. So that felt very inspiring. And then a friend, Mary from Buffalo, was like, Amy, you might want to like add internships so people know what industry you're in, so that they don't think you're, an eye doctor. I'm like, yeah, good point. So it became Visions Internships, a little bit of a marketing nightmare with the 2 S's, but yes, Visions Internships. So that's the name of my company. I started, really started started something, left my teaching, like gave my notice to these 2 colleges, still married. We weren't separated yet. My husband then, was on board, very supportive. And then less than 6 weeks later, after I give my notice and I'm no longer teaching and I'm starting my company, we are separated, which became a divorce. And the divorce went on for almost 2.5 years, which was very difficult. Of course, COVID was all part of that mix. So I probably would not have had the courage, just financially, to essentially quit my 2 teaching jobs if I knew I was going to be separated at that point, raising a 2-year-old.
Right.
So that all went down. I thought, you know what? Okay, now I'm separated, but I can still power through. Yeah, Amy, you can totally, build a new entity from scratch while raising a 2-year-old on your own.
Right.
And then I said, actually, that's not really a good thing. And I didn't realize how expensive and difficult divorce would be. And I said, you know what, I'm going to get a job. So I'm going to get the JOB.
Mm-hmm.
Grateful. I was able to, through networking, got a big job. I was actually technically working what was considered part-time between 30 and 32 hours a week, but I was able to like stabilize. I was very proud of myself. And I worked a whopping 4 months, Carrie, and then COVID hit and I was laid off from my big marketing job.
Wow.
So then
Wow.
there I was. There was obviously people listening. You guys all know there was no daycares to speak of. Of course, the
Mm-hmm.
income had stopped. I was, home with
Mm-hmm.
my little one. My mom couldn't help. There was no help. Her dad had obviously already had moved out many, many months before, about 10 months prior. And I was just sort of like in perpetual shock, like a lot of people,
Right.
those early times,
Totally.
if you can remember, it was so shocking.
Yes.
But I just
Perpetual
said,
shock.
and of course, you just sort of take it, of course, one day at a time. But in terms of like, I think it's really helpful to think about this because I was in my own little denial that like, okay, well, let me just get a new job. And then I'm like, oh, I don't know. Do I even have 30 minutes a week that's not being a mom of a 2-year-old? Like, who's going to, what am I talking about? So I was like in denial, looking for a job
Sure.
to try to make
Right.
up the income.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't know where the world was going, of course. And
Of
then there was
course.
a moment that I'm like, you know what? This is the universe's invitation to actually remind me. I actually started something that I'm going to make sure I finish that in a way that the world needs young people to have meaningful real world experience. And of course, organizations need to have work ready young people, right? So
Yes.
I felt like, you know what? I can make a huge difference in that space and sort of bridging, so I created this sort of new take on what I had already started, because what I had started wasn't super viable. I didn't have the right model.
Mm-hmm.
Plus the stress, I said, you know what, it's not the right time. I had to humble myself, get the big job. And then the universe had other plans. And then it was like, okay, well, how am I going to pick myself from this? But at least I know that I'm going to stop the actual job search. And I remember because I was on unemployment benefits at that point because I had the job. And remember, I was working for the city of Worcester at the Career Center. So for the very first time in my life, I'm on the other side of like receiving unemployment, that I had helped people facilitate and, new mindset. So I'm trying to remember like, okay, I helped all those thousands of people and now here I am years later. But it's just like I was able to continue to build my business while raising my little one. And, it took a long time. It was like an 18-month runway, Carrie, before we actually launched the first program that
I'm
people
sure.
paid me for.
Of
So
course. I mean,
it
that's
was
what building a business is. It's
it
all
was
that.
stressful. It was
It's,
stressful.
I
And
can
I
only
just,
imagine.
and I know because we're soul sisters, I know that you get it. So I was like, okay, I can choose where my head's going to go. Am I going to like, land in the mental trash, or am I going to, really step back, even though I'm on 3 and 4 hours of sleep a night as a single mom during COVID, like, and of a single child. So there was no other child to play with. I was the child plus doing all the things at home. And thank God, I just want to give my friend Beth a shout out, who has 4 children. Her youngest is my daughter's age. And so they allowed us into their COVID bubble, which was a total godsend. So we had
Beth.
our Wednesday. So Beth, thank
Shout
you.
out to Beth.
Eternally grateful. So my daughter at least had some exposure with young people during such a critical development stage. And, and I told my daughter from day one, I said, you're the vice president. You are my VP of,
I love that.
motivation, operations, whatever you want to call it. And so we've been creating Visions internships together. It's taken like many turns, twists and turns, but we've been, in the game. I mean, I've been running my company as a full-time entrepreneur now for, it's going, oh my gosh, I don't even know the math, 2.5 years, going on 3 years. And we just keep, I know the word is overused, especially since COVID, but like pivoting, like it's not like you don't always know what the right model is, the programmatic model or the revenue model. And you've got to be willing and able to absorb the feedback that you're getting from people along the way. And definitely it's a lot of like believing in myself and choosing to focus on my own mindset and making sure that I'm not polluting my mind. Like I'm not allowing the current circumstances to take me down. Like I had a choice, and I'm not even joking. I counted them. I took 55 online programs that were either free, early COVID, like virtual, leadership, business development, personal development, mindset, all these things that I was mainly taking for free, or, I got a coupon code, or I got, And I was like,
Yes.
I am going to just force myself to keep my mindset up at like you said, higher elevation, higher
Yes.
vibration, so that
Absolutely.
when the timing is right, I'm going to be ready
You're
to
ready.
really, make available what we're creating
Yes.
here. And I'm not going to have beat myself up so much that I have nothing left to give. So that was a
Yeah. And
big.
again, back to the choice, right? You made the choice. Hey, listen, I'm going to do something to better myself while we have this downtime. And there was so much available on the internet back then for free. And so I love that. You
Right.
made the choice. You said you turned to self-improvement because that always makes us feel better. And it makes us feel like we have more power, more control over the only thing we ever had any power or control over, which is ourselves and our mind. And so we're going to have to break real quick for a commercial break, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with Amy.
Thanks, Carrie.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Look for the Good. And a word from our sponsor of today's show. Are you a busy leader who has thought about working with interns to grow your organization, but you figured it'd be too time consuming? Well, Vision's Internships has got your back. Their Internship Insider membership can help you set up and run a customized, well-oiled internship program with solid ROI and minimal stress. For more info, visit internshipinsider.info. That's internshipinsider.info. And yes, this is Amy's company that we've been talking about, Vision's Internship, everybody. And so I know you're hanging on her word because she just told us some really heart-wrenching things about what she was going through, but yet what I'm hearing is this incredible resilience that this woman has to keep going in times where most people would probably give up because of all the things that happened that were completely out of her control. But yet she continued, and because she saw the value in what she was doing and she believed in herself. But I think for a lot of entrepreneurs who want to go to start off into something, it's so easy to stop when you're sort of in the middle of it because things feel like it's falling apart because you don't really see the effect that you're having right away. And you want to, and I'm going to use a little play on words here with internships, you want to jump ship. So how did you not jump ship? What is the concept or idea behind that kept you going and taking action when others might have just folded it up and said, I'm going to go get a job?
Mm. Oh my gosh. And in full disclosure with Mosher Berry, I thought about it, especially in the earlier stages and trying to juggle being a single mom and all the things we talked about before that like, whoop, didn't think that was going to happen. And here I am. So many reasons to, like you said, jump ship. And we're laughing because my latest, offer has to do with, helping people on their own journey, especially busy organizational leaders who would love help setting up, running an internship program. So there's these 5 stages we can talk about in a little bit, but how did I not jump ship as an entrepreneur? I think that's an awesome question. I mean, I think like, any person, and at this time, it's not like I was in my 20s anymore. It's like I had a sense of who I am and like, who do I really want to serve before it's all said and done? So I have this sort of 2-prong audience, and in my mind and soul and my business model, I can't see serving one without the other. And those are the organizations and the young people. So we call them, specifically
YPs.
purpose-driven young professionals. And I go back and forth between calling them young people and young professionals because I want to meet them where they're at. Sometimes they don't view themselves yet as a so-called professional. That is something that I, view as part of our programs and training and support for them, that we can help get them there if that's what they choose. So yes, the YPs and those that are purpose-driven, I am especially interested in showing young people that they can do well for themselves and do good work in the world. So it's all about doing well and doing good. Very passionate about that.
Yes.
And then, of course, for our organizations, we're talking especially about serving social impact organizations, right? So there is something called the purpose gap. It was a study done in 2019, and it's something that we base a lot of our work on, is that young people today, over 80% of today's graduates from US colleges are looking for so-called purposeful work. They're looking to give back to the greater good. They want to help people, help planet as part of their paid job. And that is something that a lot of employers are missing the boat on, Carrie. They don't recognize what is having young people want to work, so be attracted, and of course, retain, stay at the job. So we specifically contract with social impact organizations. So they could be socially or environmentally conscious in some way, shape, or form. I'm nobody's, judge or guru here, but if you're somebody you could be a for-profit, nonprofit, government, helping people, helping planet. So those are really the audiences that we serve. And I just kind of like looked at my life and I'm like, I'm never not going to be, in some way, shape, or form pursuing career and leadership development, empowering my purpose-driven young people. And I'm never going to not be doing my best to help build the capacity, the efficiency, the impact of these social impact organizations. So what a great marriage, if you will. I know that's a little bit of a sensitive topic during this episode. But what a great way for me. Like I just feel like I'm always going to be doing something around leadership development and
Yes.
sustainable development.
I
Right.
love it.
And
Yeah.
so this is where we can not to get too kumbaya here, Carrie, but this is where we can truly come together and truly build brighter futures, is that we can tap the totally underutilized energy, ideas, enthusiasm, drive, hunger of our young people and get that hunger tapped in and channeled and helping our overstretched, busy organizational leaders who are absolutely, in many cases, desperate for the help. They need project support now, and they need access to talent. So I just felt like, you know what? I can pull this off. I can fill a true gap. And I'm like, oh my God, all those years later, when I found myself in the position of teaching at the college level, I'm like, my goodness, my young people are dealing with the same inquiry. They think they can either do well for themselves or do good work in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And 20 plus years later, there I am in the classroom hearing so many of my young people struggling with that same issue. So I'm like, you know what? This is going to be our focus. And I knew I could make a difference. And you can tell the passion that I bring.
Totally. I love that. And though, you know what I mean? Because these are the millennials and they have bigger thoughts and feelings about their contributions in the world. They're not just out there to make money. They want to be satisfied with their work. They want to feel like they're making a difference.
Exactly.
And so I love that you took, all the studies and the science behind it of what is really going on with them, but then you're firsthand right there in the trenches with those kids, young people, because you were their teacher, right? So you got to hear it firsthand and you saw, again, because your mind is designed like an entrepreneur, you saw an opportunity to help two people at once, to bring those two groups, like you said, the marriage of those two groups together. And that was your solution because nobody else is offering that solution in just the same way that you are.
I've heard so many of my own professional colleagues that say, Amy, can you just hook me up with a couple of good interns? And I'm like, you know what? I could. And there's so much more to that story because and I'm not going to get into all the weeds, guys. I'm more than happy to chat with anybody after this podcast. I don't want to, get too into the details here because I can geek out on like internship 101 here, but there are so many aspects to even call it an internship. There are legal ramifications. Like the Department of Labor has 7 criteria that we can talk about. The young people need to actually be experiencing specific learning and growth as part of the internship. And there are so many questions, understandably, that organizations have, and maybe they've tried in the past or thought about it, or since COVID, people have a hard enough keeping track of their experienced and paid staff, right? If it's a hybrid arrangement, coming in. So it's like, well, gosh, to work with interns is just too much right now. So we've really been able to really take the time to listen, Carrie, to the leaders of these organizations. So whether they're, it could be an executive director of a nonprofit, it could be a program manager, somebody who's a CEO, right? And, whereas we've slowed down long enough, I know I talk fast and get excited, so you can only imagine me consciously slowing down to really listen to what these organizations truly need. So, I'm always going to be working to train and empower young people and connect them as best I can. But really the focus this fall and beyond is really on the organizations getting the right, as you said, in I think the ad we put together, an actual customized and well-oiled internship program. It's not a carbon copy of the other. Some organizations may want to work with high schoolers or may want to work only with college students, or maybe they don't care if they're in college. And are they part-time? Are they full-time? Do you pay them? Do I have to deal with the college? Like there's all these things that we can help organizations actually overcome in very little time and relatively little money with our internship insider membership that we talked about in the ad.
Yeah.
How fun is it to have an ad during the
love
the episode? That was a good idea. Thank you for that opportunity.
Absolutely. I love that because, again, I really believe in what you do, and it's totally aligned with what we've been talking about, what the show is all about, which is looking for the good. And you saw a problem, you looked for the good, you came up with a solution that helps both of those groups of people
Mhm.
because you're helping these companies structure internships. Because even myself as an entrepreneur, I've looked into having an intern before because somebody in my mastermind said it was a great idea,
Of course.
sent me a link, went on the link, and it was so bloody complicated. And I didn't have time to fill out all that paperwork. Otherwise, I wouldn't be working in my own business, right? So it's like
Exactly.
I just dropped it. It sounded like a great idea, but not for me because I didn't have the time because it's complicated. So I love that you bridge that gap for people and organizations, and you help them decide what it is that they want, what's most
Exactly.
important, what's going to serve the company, and then write that together in a really, like you said, customized program for them. But then you're also helping the young people, and you have something to
Mhm.
help them with, right? Because now you have
Mhm.
some solutions and places for them to go and fill those
Yes,
internships.
it's that internship development. It reminds me a lot of what we had done, after I mentioned I worked for City of Worcester, we did a lot of job development with employers that were wanting to hire, but there was a lot of, questions, obviously, after that time period. And it's very similar. It's like we want the young people to have a solid, healthy experience so that we
Mhm.
need to be more intentional to help these organizations build the internship infrastructure. That's been
Yes.
missing. So that was the piece that was really missing. We've been running programs. We ran 5 programs over 2 years. And one of the biggest things is if, they didn't renew with us, there was nothing in place for them to build from because it was a do it for you solution. So now this membership is intentionally a do it with you solution. So we are working with, a key accountable person in the organization. Plus, I would always recommend at least 1, if not 2, or maybe 3 max more, where it's like an internal
Mhm.
working group and they're working to implement what I'm teaching them with our support at Visions Internship. So that's a really exciting model because we can help so many more organizations
Way more.
and by extension, so many more young people. There's so many more places for young people, especially post-COVID, to land and actually experience a mutually fulfilling experience for themselves and not just go through the motions to hopefully get credit. That's not doing it.
Absolutely. I love that. And then they're not really invested in it if they're just trying to get credit to
Exactly.
graduate, right?
Exactly.
This is so much more. And, having a YP live here at my home that
Yes.
just graduated in May, I get this like to my core.
Mm.
It's hard for them if they're out of college. It's a big transition. So you're offering a lifeline, really,
Mhm.
or a life vest, or,
There
one of
you
those little
go.
lifesavers they throw out on boats.
Yes. Well, that's part of our internship insider logo is it looks like a captain's ship. So we want to empower the leaders to be captains of their own ship. And of course, young people as well. But we got their back, we're going to throw that out to you because we have a very, a specific process because we've been in the trenches, we've done the thinking and stressing for the
Mhm.
organizations. And we're really what we've tested and landed on is that, organizations really need to be able to give us on average about 2 hours of time
Mhm.
per week. So no more than 10 hours per month. And then we will work with the key people to make sure that they're setting up and running that internship program that works for their organization. And it's going to be a little bit unique. We're helping them basically create their own internship program playbook.
Wow.
So if somebody leaves that organization, there's a playbook to refer back to, and it's not just going to be this big mystery, right?
Right.
So that's another thing that we're really excited about. I liken it to a Chamber of Commerce membership because it's sort of like if you have an internship insider membership, whether you're thinking about creating and running a program or you're in the trenches running it or you're looking to revise yours, you have the support of this internship insider membership, just like a chamber membership, right? So like
Mhm.
anybody in your organization can pass the torch,
I was just
they've
thinking
got what
that.
they need.
Yeah,
They have the
exactly.
information, online resources. It is a virtual membership, I should clarify. So they have the sort of how-to resources, and the big thing people are excited about is the live coaching Q&A. So we want to not just give you information, but we're going live with you to help you actually implement what you're learning. You're not just like out in the ocean trying to survive on your own.
On a life
Um,
raft. Right.
exactly.
I love that because like you said, it is sustainable. This is something that once they develop it and they
Yes.
set it up and they're part of the membership program, whether somebody leaves or not, this is not going anywhere from the organization because they've got you backing it. You can train any new people that come in and they
Exactly.
get the playbook, right? They get the playbook. So this is going to be part of the organization for the long term.
Which
And
implies fun, I was like, oh,
totally.
workbook, but playbook is way
Playbook,
more fun.
way more fun. Yeah, it's like a football game. A playbook is way fun. You got to have some
Way
play.
fun.
I had
And
somebody on my show last week that talked about if you're not having fun in organizations, you're not using a certain part. There's a certain part of your
ooh,
brain
yes,
just designated for fun. And if you're not utilizing that, what we use, we lose. What we don't use, we lose, right?
exactly.
So bringing the playbook in, bringing some fun in, and you are total fun. So I
I
don't
say
know
it's
anybody.
mandatory fun. One of my latest lives, I was like, okay, my people, are we ready to have mandatory fun this fall? My founding members, you guys, this is something that it's literally this month. We are recruiting a limited number of founding members. There will never be another founding membership. So not to sound too cheesy, but
Love it.
definitely the best moment. I am locking in the lowest possible price, and you guys can get the best possible price by October 20th. So my best suggestion is if you're even vaguely interested in any of what I'm talking about, or somebody who is, try to get them connected with me so we can have a one-on-one before October 20th so that you can lock in at that best rate. And we have monthly or annual options. And after that, the price will be going up next year, of course, but I will never raise the price of my founding members. So it's a wonderful time to get in, and you're getting obviously, consultant level support at really a fraction of the price. So I don't need to throw a commercial in, but I felt like I had to say that because if I'm listening to this, it is this month. So
Yep.
it is timely.
That's awesome. It's totally timely. And thank you for that commercial.
Thank you for
But I
tips.
love the mandatory fun. So if anything, and you
Yes.
need some mandatory fun, but Amy's got it going on. As you can see, she's got all the experience behind her. She has given us so many tips and tools that we can take away today to manage our minds better and believe in ourselves and give ourselves self-care that we need to be able to do the hard things and to create our own business. So if you have an idea, even if it's the smallest little idea, if it's there serving people, like I love that Amy wants to serve people. She wants to serve so many people in a conscientious way, and organizations and companies that are making a difference in people's lives. I love that. So go find her, like we talked about this before, visionsinternships.com. Okay. And all this will be in the show notes. If you forget or you don't write it down because it's radio, sometimes we have to spell things. Visions, VISIONS, internships, INTERNSHIPS, like the ships we've been talking about all episode here today.
Yeah,
So,
and the other URL that you gave is also accurate. If people have specific interest in the Internship Insider membership, we tried to make it easy. If you guys go to internshipinsider.info, it will take you to the membership information. But definitely visionsinternships.com is great.
Reach out to Amy, find her on LinkedIn, find me on LinkedIn while you're there. You can always find her through my page as well. And we loved this conversation today, Amy. Thank you so much for being on. And thank you so much for all that you do for the community, for the why people, for organizations. We really appreciate it. You have a great time in Maine today.
Thank you so much, Carrie.
Thanks, everybody. Love you too. Be well. And remember, it is never too late to live your best story.
Thanks for tuning in to Look for the Good with your host, Carrie Rowan, best-selling author and mindset coach. Join us every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. right here at Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. If you weren't able to catch an episode, no worries. Just visit our website to find all the archived episodes of Look for the Good on demand so you don't miss a thing. And remember, it's never too late to live your best story. For additional resources or to find out about how you can work with Carrie directly, visit carrierowan.com for more details.